Young man is humiliated for his appearance, but years later, he returns transformed, surprising everyone who doubted him. The sun shone brightly on a crisp autumn day as Orion stepped through the school gates. His messy hair fell over his forehead, and his thick glasses slid down his nose. He felt the familiar weight of the stares that followed him, a mix of curiosity and disdain. Each glance felt like a stone, heavy and unyielding, pressing down on his chest. He took a deep breath, hoping to find a moment of peace, but the laughter that echoed in the hallways shattered that hope. In the distance, a group of classmates stood by the lockers, their laughter ringing out like sharp knives. "Look at him," one of them sneered, pointing. "Does he even own a comb?" Another chimed in. "Maybe he thinks he's an artist, more like a joke." Orion's heart sank. He wanted to turn away, to disappear into the crowd, but the hall was too crowded and the taunts too loud. He walked past them, his eyes glued to the floor, avoiding their gaze. He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and anger. Why did it have to be him? Why did they choose him as their target? Questions raced through his mind, but he pushed them down, focusing instead on the sound of his footsteps, echoing in the silence he desperately wanted to escape. With each step, he felt the weight of their words pressing against him, a constant reminder of his isolation. As he reached his locker, he paused for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady himself. The metal door felt cold under his fingers, a stark contrast to the warmth of the sun outside. He turned the combination slowly, trying to block out the noise of the world around him. "Hey, loser!" a voice called out, and Orion flinched. It was Ethan, the ringleader of the group, who mocked him. Orion could picture him now, smirking with that cocky grin. He thought of the countless times he had wanted to stand up to Ethan, to tell him to stop, but fear always held him back. "Why do you even bother coming here?" Ethan continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "You should just stay home and draw your little pictures." The cruel laughter of his friends followed, and Orion felt his heart shatter a little more. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to open his locker, to focus on the books inside instead of their taunts. But the weight of their stares lingered, heavy and suffocating. Why did it hurt so much? He remembered the times he had tried to fit in, to laugh along with them, but it never worked. They always saw him as different, an outsider. Orion sighed, pulling out his books and shutting the locker with a gentle thud. He felt the tears welling up in his eyes, but he blinked them away, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing him cry. He glanced around the hallway, searching for a friendly face, but all he found were indifferent looks and smirks. As he walked to class, a thought nagged at him. How did he become the target? What had he done to deserve this? He longed for acceptance, to be seen for who he truly was, rather than the loser they painted him to be. Would things ever change? Would he ever find a place where he belonged? His heart ached with the weight of those questions, and as he entered the classroom, he felt the familiar chill of loneliness wrap around him. He took his seat, trying to blend in, to be invisible, but inside, he was screaming for someone to reach out, to see beyond the glasses and the messy hair. Orion looked out the window, the leaves swirling in the wind, vibrant and alive. If only he could feel that way, free and unburdened. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, imagining a world where laughter was not a weapon, but a source of joy, where he was not the target, but a friend. Would that ever be his reality? The bell rang, pulling him back to the present. Orion opened his eyes, ready to face another day of stares and whispers, but deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to change the narrative. As Orion sat alone in the corner of his room, he picked up his worn sketchbook. The pages were filled with drawings, each one a glimpse into his heart. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on his sketches. He remembered the afternoons when he would lose himself in the world of colors and shapes, far away from the jeers of his classmates. "I wish they could see this," he whispered to himself, flipping through the pages. Each drawing told a story, a story of his struggles and dreams. He had always felt like an outsider, but in art, he found a refuge. It was a space where he could express himself without fear of judgment. In his mind, he recalled one particular afternoon. He had been sitting under the old oak tree in the park, the sound of leaves rustling around him. He was drawing a dragon, its scales shimmering in the sunlight. The drawing felt alive, a creature born from his imagination. "Look at that one," a voice had called out, breaking his concentration. It was a group of his classmates. They were laughing, their faces twisted with mockery. Orion's heart sank as he felt the weight of their stares. "Who are you trying to impress?" one of them sneered. "You think you can be an artist?" Orion had looked down at his drawing, shame flooding his chest. But then, something inside him stirred. He remembered the joy he felt while creating. In that moment, he decided not to let their words crush his spirit. "Art is for everyone," he had muttered under his breath, his fingers tightening around the pencil. He had continued to draw, blocking out their laughter, finding solace in the strokes of his pencil. Now, in the quiet of his room, he thought more deeply about what art meant to him. It was not just a way to escape, it was a part of who he was. "I want to show them the beauty I see," he said softly, his eyes shining with determination. Orion began to sketch again, pouring his emotions onto the pages. He drew his hopes, his fears, and the moments that made him feel alive. With each stroke, he felt lighter, as if the weight of his loneliness was lifting. Maybe one day, he thought, they will see me for who I truly am. He could picture it, standing in front of a crowd, sharing his art, and revealing his truth. His mind wandered to the idea of acceptance. What if his art could change how others looked at him? What if they could see the beauty in his passion? If they only knew, he mused, imagining the faces of his classmates transformed by understanding. One day, as he worked on a new piece, his younger sister Mia peeked into his room. "What are you drawing, Orion?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Just something I'm working on," he replied, turning the sketchbook toward her. It was a vibrant landscape, filled with swirling colors and shapes. "It's beautiful," Mia exclaimed, her face lighting up. "Can I try?" Orion smiled, feeling warmth spread through him. "Of course. Here, take this pencil." He handed her a pencil and a blank page. As she began to draw, he felt a sense of pride. In that moment, he was not just an artist, he was a mentor, sharing his passion with someone who looked up to him. "Do you think I can be an artist too?" Mia asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Absolutely," Orion replied, his heart swelling. "Art is for everyone, remember? It's about expressing yourself." Mia nodded, her focus unwavering as she created her own masterpiece. Watching her, Orion realized how important it was to encourage others. If he could inspire even one person to embrace their creativity, perhaps he could change the world, one drawing at a time. With renewed determination, he sketched faster, envisioning a future where his art would speak louder than the words of his past. He thought, "One day, I will show them my truth. I will show them my art." As he finished his drawing, a sense of hope filled the room. Orion closed his sketchbook, knowing that within those pages lay not just his art, but the essence of who he was. Time slipped by like a gentle breeze, and Orion stood at the threshold of his dreams. The once timid boy, burdened by the weight of stares, had transformed into a talented artist. His first major exhibition was just around the corner, a moment he had longed for, but never thought would come true. He looked around his small studio, filled with the vibrant colors of his paintings, each one a piece of his heart laid bare. As he prepared for the exhibition, he felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was not just a showcase of his work, it was a testament to his journey. Orion thought about the years of struggle, the countless nights spent pouring his soul into his art, and the moments of doubt that had almost made him give up. He took a deep breath, his fingers brushing over the canvas as if to remind himself of how far he had come. On the day of the exhibition, the gallery buzzed with energy. People moved in and out, their laughter and chatter filling the space. Orion stood in front of his favorite piece, a large canvas that depicted a stormy sea with a small boat bravely navigating the waves. He had painted it during a time of deep sadness, yet it now felt like a symbol of hope. "Orion, this is amazing," a voice called out, snapping him from his thoughts. It was Julia, a fellow artist he had met during workshops. Her eyes sparkled with admiration as she pointed to his painting. "You've captured so much emotion here." "Thank you, Julia," Orion replied, a smile spreading across his face. "It means a lot to me." As he spoke with her, he felt a sense of belonging that had once seemed unattainable. But just as he began to relax, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, sending a chill down his spine. It was Ethan, the boy who had made his school years a nightmare. The confident man looked different now, but Orion recognized him instantly. Ethan approached, his expression uncertain. "Orion," he started, his voice low. "I didn't expect to see you here." Orion felt his heart race. He wanted to turn away, to hide behind his art, but he stood his ground. "What do you want, Ethan?" he asked, keeping his tone steady. I wanted to say I'm sorry," Ethan said, his eyes searching Orion's face. "For everything. I was a jerk back then. I've changed." Orion's mind raced. He could feel the anger boiling inside him, the memories of the cruel words and laughter echoing in his mind. But as he looked at Ethan, he saw something different. Regret. "You hurt a lot of people, Ethan," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "It wasn't just me." "I know," Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've thought about it a lot. I wish I could take it back. I just want you to know I'm not that person anymore." Orion paused, the tension hanging between them like a heavy curtain. He could choose to hold on to his anger, to unleash years of hurt all at once. But something inside him hesitated. He remembered his art, the lessons it had taught him about forgiveness and letting go. "Maybe we all make mistakes," Orion finally said, his words coming out slowly. "But it's what we do, after that matters." Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. "Thank you for saying that. I really admire your work. You've done something incredible here." Orion felt a flicker of something unexpected. Compassion. "I appreciate it," he said, surprised by his own response. "Art helped me find my voice. I hope it can help others too." As they stood there, two men shaped by their pasts, Orion realized that this moment was part of his journey too. He was no longer the scared boy hiding in the shadows. He had grown, and he had the power to choose how to respond to his past. With a final nod, Ethan stepped back, and Orion returned his focus to the gallery, his heart lighter than before. He was ready to embrace the night, to share his story with those who had come to see his work. The exhibition was not just about art, it was about connection, healing, and the passage of time that had brought them all together. The night of the exhibition arrived, and the gallery was buzzing with excitement. Bright lights hung from the ceiling, illuminating Orion's artwork that adorned the walls. Each piece told a story of imperfections, struggles, and resilience. Orion stood near the entrance, his heart racing. He nervously adjusted his glasses and glanced around, feeling both proud and anxious. "Look at this one," a young woman exclaimed, pointing at a painting that captured swirling colors and chaotic lines. "It's beautiful. You can really feel the emotion in it." Orion smiled weakly, grateful for the praise, but his mind was elsewhere. The laughter and jeers from his school days echoed in his thoughts. He remembered how much he had longed to be accepted back then. Being here, surrounded by people who appreciated his art, felt surreal. Yet, he could not shake off the shadows of his past. As the night went on, Orion spoke with several attendees. They admired his work and shared their interpretations, and he felt a warmth growing inside him. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe that he was no longer the boy who hid in the corners of the school hallways. Then, as he turned to greet another guest, he froze. Standing before him was Ethan, the boy who once made his life miserable. His heart sank, and a rush of anger surged through him. Ethan looked different now, more mature, with a hint of regret in his eyes. "Orion," Ethan said hesitantly, his voice low. I wanted to talk to you." Orion clenched his fists, unsure of what to say. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone sharper than he intended. Ethan took a deep breath. "I came to apologize. I know I was a jerk back in school. I was young and stupid. I'm really sorry for how I treated you." Orion's heart raced, caught between the desire to hear the apology and the urge to push Ethan away. "You think that makes it okay?" "You hurt me," he replied, feeling the anger bubbling within. "I know," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I've thought about it a lot since then. I didn't realize how much my words affected you. Seeing you here, it's clear how talented you are. You've grown into someone amazing." Orion looked at Ethan, searching for sincerity in his eyes. "You don't get to just say sorry and expect everything to be fine. You can't erase the past," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I know I can't," Ethan replied, his expression earnest. "But I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I don't expect you to forget, but I want you to know that I regret my actions." The tension in the air was thick. Orion felt torn. Part of him wanted to lash out, to remind Ethan of all the pain he had caused, but another part of him recognized the courage it took for Ethan to stand there, admitting his faults. "Why now?" Orion asked, his curiosity piqued. "Why come to me after all this time?" "I've changed," Ethan said quietly. "Life has a way of teaching us lessons. I've learned that kindness matters, and I want to make amends where I can. I see how far you've come, and I admire you for it." Orion's anger slowly began to fade, replaced by a sense of understanding. "It's not easy to forgive," he admitted, his voice softer. "I know, but I hope you can try," Ethan replied, his eyes pleading. "You deserve to be happy and to be seen for who you are." As Orion stood there, he felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. Could he really let go of the hurt? The thought of forgiveness felt daunting, but as he looked around at the gallery filled with people who celebrated him, he realized that holding on to anger would only keep him trapped. "Maybe," Orion said finally, his voice steady. "I'll think about it, but it's going to take time." Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. "That's all I ask. Thank you for hearing me out." As Ethan walked away, Orion felt a mixture of emotions swirling within him. The night was still young, and the exhibition continued to buzz with life. But now, amidst the applause and admiration, he carried a glimmer of hope. A hope that he could begin to let go of the past, one step at a time. As the soft light of the gallery illuminated his artwork, Orion stood at the center of the room, feeling both nervous and excited. The air was thick with anticipation. He glanced around at the faces of the people who had come to see his art. Each piece represented a fragment of his journey, a story of struggle and resilience. Yet, tonight, he was about to share a deeper story, his own. Taking a deep breath, he stepped up to the small podium set before him. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edges, feeling the cool wood beneath his fingers. The murmurs of the audience faded into a hush, and all eyes turned to him. He could see familiar faces in the crowd, some from his past, some new. All of them had come to witness this moment. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Orion began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "When I first picked up a pencil as a kid, I had no idea it would lead me to this moment. Back then, I felt invisible." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle in the room. "I was bullied. I was laughed at. But art became my refuge. It was my way of speaking when I felt I had no voice." He looked at the group, his gaze lingering on a few familiar faces, including Ethan, who stood off to the side, his expression unreadable. Orion swallowed hard, pushing through the tension. "I learned that our scars tell stories. They shape who we are but do not define us. Each of my paintings represents a piece of my heart. Each brushstroke, a step toward healing." A soft murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Orion could feel the energy shifting, a connection forming between him and the audience. I remember sitting alone in the cafeteria, wishing to be accepted. I thought, if I created something beautiful, maybe they would see me differently. But it took me years to understand that I needed to accept myself first. A woman in the front row nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "You're so brave for sharing this," she whispered, though Orion could hear her clearly. It gave him strength. "I'm not here to dwell on the past," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "I'm here to celebrate how far we have all come. Each of you has your own story, moments of pain, joy, and growth. We all have scars, but we also have the ability to heal and support one another." As he spoke, he noticed Ethan stepping forward, his expression shifting from apprehension to something more vulnerable. Orion hesitated, but chose to keep his focus on the audience. Embracing our scars is part of being human. We all yearn for acceptance, and we can find that in our shared experiences. The audience listened intently, some nodding their heads in understanding. Orion felt a wave of connection wash over him, as if the room was filled with a shared heartbeat. Tonight, I encourage you all to look at one another and see the beauty in our imperfections. Let's create a space where we can uplift each other, no matter our past. The applause began softly, rising in a crescendo as he finished his speech. Orion's heart swelled with pride and relief. He felt seen, truly seen, by the crowd. The moment was transformative, not just for him, but for everyone in the room. Ethan stepped closer as the applause echoed around them. "Orion," he said, his voice low, "I'm really sorry for what I did back then. I never understood how much it affected you." For a brief moment, Orion's mind raced. He could feel the weight of their shared history hanging in the air. But instead of anger, he felt a sense of compassion. "Thank you, Ethan," he replied, his voice calm. "It means a lot that you said that." As the evening continued, Orion received hugs and congratulations from attendees. Each interaction felt like a thread, weaving a new tapestry of connection. The applause faded, but the warmth in the room lingered, creating bonds that he had never thought possible. Orion realized that the night was not just about him. It was about everyone coming together, sharing their stories, and finding strength in their scars. As he looked around at the faces illuminated by the soft gallery lights, he knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life, filled with acceptance and understanding. In the quiet days following the exhibition, Orion found himself standing at a crossroads. The weight of his past mixed with the lightness of his recent success. He gazed out from his small studio, the sun streaming through the windows, illuminating the canvases that now hung proudly on the walls. Each piece told a story, not just of his struggles, but of the acceptance he had finally begun to feel. Orion recalled the faces of those who had come to see his art, the surprise in their eyes as they recognized the boy they once teased. He could still hear the applause ringing in his ears, a sound that felt like a warm embrace. It was time to reach out, to explore the possibility of reconnecting with his old classmates, not out of resentment, but with a spirit of growth and healing. He picked up his phone and hesitated. Would they remember him as he remembered them? Would they still feel the same way? Taking a deep breath, he sent a message to Mia, a girl from school who had not been part of the bullying, but had never stepped in to help either. "Hi, Mia. I know it's been a while. I'd love to catch up sometime. Let me know if you're free." A few days later, Orion received a response. "Hey, Orion. It's great to hear from you. I'd love to meet up. How about coffee this weekend?" His heart raced at the thought. This was a step forward, a chance to see the past not as a burden, but as a part of his journey. On Saturday, Orion arrived at the cafe, his palms sweaty with nerves. When Mia walked in, he almost did not recognize her. She had changed, her hair was shorter, and she wore a confident smile. "Orion," she exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "It's so good to see you." "Hi, Mia," he replied, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. They settled into a cozy corner, and the conversation flowed easily. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and how much things had changed since high school. "I saw your exhibition," Mia said, her eyes bright with admiration. "It was incredible. I never knew you were so talented." "Thanks," Orion said, a small smile forming on his lips. "It was a big moment for me." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I used to think that my art wouldn't matter, that no one would care." Mia looked thoughtful. "I can understand that. We all had our struggles. I wish I had known what you were going through. I might have done something to help." Orion felt a warmth spread in his chest. "It's okay. I used to carry a lot of anger, but I've learned that holding on to it doesn't help anyone." Their conversation shifted to memories from school, both painful and joyful. Orion shared a story about the time he won an art contest in class, and Mia laughed, remembering how everyone had been surprised. "You always had that spark," she said. "I just never knew how bright it could shine." As they parted ways, Mia gave Orion a hug. "Let's not wait so long to do this again," she said, her voice full of sincerity. "I'd love to hear more about your art." "Absolutely," Orion replied, feeling lighter than he had in years. In the following weeks, he reached out to others, slowly reconnecting with classmates. Each meeting was a new step into a world he had once feared. Some conversations were awkward, but many were filled with laughter and understanding. He learned that many of them had their own stories of struggle, their own scars they carried. One afternoon, while catching up with a group at a local art fair, Ethan approached him. "Orion," he began, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry for how I treated you in school." Orion looked at him, surprised. "Thank you for saying that, Ethan. I didn't understand back then. I see now how wrong I was," Ethan continued, his gaze steady. "I hope you can forgive me." Orion took a moment, feeling the weight of the past lift. "I've learned to let go of that anger. I forgive you." The air between them shifted, a silent acknowledgement of growth and change. As they parted ways, Orion felt a new sense of freedom. He realized that his past did not define him. It enriched his narrative, making him who he was today. Embracing his identity fully, he found a sense of belonging among those who had once been strangers. In the echo of silence, he discovered the beauty of imperfection and the power of forgiveness, leading him into a bright new beginning. Share this story if you believe that forgiveness and connection can heal even the deepest wounds. Leave a comment about a time when reconnecting with someone changed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one.